Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here's a look at some of the stories we have lined up for you tonight. President Trump terminates trade talks with Canada after an Ontario ad featuring former President Ronald Reagan warns about dangers of tariffs. Plus, the Alberta Teachers Association responds to Premier Smith's Back to School Act, which seeks to end the province-wide teachers' strike. And Ukraine unveils a new weapon in its arsenal, an upgraded unmanned sea drone.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. Trade talks between Canada and the United States have been terminated by U.S. President Donald Trump. He is upset with an ad the province of Ontario has released, which uses the words of former U.S. President Ronald Reagan, warning about the dangers of tariffs. Reagan's words came from a radio address he gave back in 1987.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition.
After the ad aired on multiple U.S. TV stations, Trump accused Canada of using it to try to influence an upcoming U.S. Supreme Court ruling on the future of his tariffs and promptly terminated any trade discussions with Canada. Meanwhile, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute posted on social media that the ads misrepresented the president's address and said Ontario did not seek or receive permission to use and edit the remarks. The foundation is apparently considering legal action. Ontario Premier Doug Ford now says the province will pause its anti-tariff TV ad campaign in the U.S. so the trade talks between Canada and the U.S. can resume. Before jetting off to Asia, Prime Minister Mark Carney said Canada stands ready for the Americans to resume trade talks.
We can't control the trade policy of the United States. We recognize that that policy has fundamentally changed from the policy in the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s. And it's a situation where the United States has tariffs against every one of their trading partners to different degrees. And it's in that context that our officials, my colleagues, have been working with their American colleagues on detailed, constructive negotiations, discussions on specific transactions, specific sectors, steel, aluminum, and energy, and a lot of progress has been made. And we stand ready to pick up on that progress and build on that progress when the Americans are ready to have those discussions, because it will be for the benefit of workers in the United States, workers in Canada, and families in both of our countries. Now, what we can control, absolutely, is how we build here at home, and that's the focus of Budget 2025, generational investment here in Canada. And what we can also control, or at least heavily influence, is developing new partnerships and opportunities, including with the economic giants of Asia, which is the focus of this trip.
Carney is on a 9-day trip to Asia, his first to the continent since taking office, as part of his government's effort to build stronger trade and diplomatic ties with a region that's feeling increasingly squeezed between the U.S. and China. He'll be making stops in Malaysia, Singapore, and South Korea to talk trade with local leaders and attend multinational summits. U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to be at the same events. And there has been a reaction to Trump's termination of trade talks from Canada's business sector, but it's not sounding the alarm. The head of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce says the trade talks are like 3D chess, and no one should lose sight of the bigger picture in negotiations with the United States. Candace Lang notes that Canada still has a strong trade deal that supports both industry and massive investments in Canada. The Canadian Steel Producers Association says it will talk about the state of trade talks in the coming days, and it continues to work with Ottawa toward a deal that supports the Canadian steel industry. Alberta teachers are preparing for an unwanted return to work. Premier Danielle Smith announced on Thursday that back-to-work legislation would be introduced next Monday. The president of the Alberta Teachers Association responded to that news on Friday afternoon. Jason Schilling says the government is using this as a tool to not address the real issues.
And let me be clear, teachers have bargained in good faith. We have brought forward thoughtful, practical solutions to improving learning conditions, including meaningful discussions around class size and classroom complexities, student-teacher ratios, the very factors that shape every child's daily experience in school. By choosing to table back-to-work legislation, the government is choosing to ignore these issues raised by teachers and kicking any kind of negotiated settlement down the road. I'm frustrated by this entire process, and so are our colleagues across this province, teachers across the province, parents, students. Everybody's frustrated by the fact that government has very clearly stated that they don't want to talk about student-teacher ratios. They don't want to talk about the things that have put us in this situation to begin with. They don't want to talk about the chronic underfunding that we see within the system, the fact that students are falling through the cracks. They don't want to talk about that. We've been more than willing to sit down and negotiate through this entire process.
Schilling would not say how the union might respond to the back-to-work legislation, as they have yet to wait and see how the bill is worded. He said the Provincial Executive Council will make those decisions once it sees what's in the bill. BCM caught up with the president of the Alberta School Councils Association, Ken Glazebrook, who shared his thoughts on this potential back-to-work legislation.
If it does pass, let's just say on Monday, it's our understanding that they'll be given 48 hours before they have to be back into the classroom. The unclear part is that 48 hours taking in Monday, so they're back on Wednesday, or are they back on Thursday? There's concerns on what this legislation will look like as it's implemented. Will teachers be forced back into the classroom? Will it be a work-to-rule environment? Will they defy the legislation, or there'll be legal challenges to this legislation? All this is up in the air, and both parents and students have expressed their concerns based on their experiences that came through the pandemic and the support workers labor action earlier this year, and the learning gaps and mental health complexities that came out of that, and the financial pressure and stress this gives to especially those single parent family and low income families. And then when we take on top of that, looking at support for high need students, for many students, school is much more than just an academic experience. It provides structure, social interactions, extracurriculars, and a routine which helps with their mental health and those engagements.
51,000 teachers have been on strike for 19 days. One of the biggest issues is class sizes. The ATA says the government so far has refused to put student-teacher ratios into the new contract. Friday, in a Norfolk, Virginia courtroom, New York Attorney General Letitia James pleaded not guilty to a charge of mortgage fraud. She is accused of falsely claiming loan documents that she would use a home she bought in Norfolk, Virginia as a secondary residence in order to get more favorable loan terms, when she in fact used it as an investment property. In her 2018 campaign to become New York State AG, James promised to pursue then former U.S. President Trump, which she did, opening an investigation into him shortly after taking office, accusing him of fraudulently inflating the value of his assets. Now she claims he's attacking her.
But this is not about me. This is about all of us. And about a justice system which has been weaponized. A justice system which has been used as a tool of revenge. But my faith is strong. And my faith is, I have this belief in the justice system, in the rule of law, and I have a belief in America, and I will not be deterred. And I will not be deterred.
The charges against James were brought by Trump's hand-picked U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. James is expected to soon submit a motion to dismiss the indictment on grounds that Halligan was improperly appointed. And since she alone filed the charges, the entire case should be thrown out. Ukraine's state security service has unveiled a new weapon in its arsenal. It's an upgraded unmanned sea drone known as the Sea Baby. It can carry heavier weapons, use artificial intelligence for targeting, and operate anywhere in the Black Sea.
Дрони були побудовані за кошти, які зібрав народ України в рамках Юнайтед 24. Тому це такий своєрідний звіт перед народом України про найбільш, напевно, ефективне застосування коштів, які люди для нас зібрали.
Можемо їхати в будь-яку точку, навіть світу, з сучасними технологіями. Тобто, як я вже казав, ми можемо просто їхати по дорозі, заїхати за хот-догом і вести місію.
The security service of Ukraine says drone strikes have been used in successful attacks against 11 Russian vessels, including frigates and missile carriers. It says those attacks have prompted the Russian Navy to relocate its main base from China to Russia's Black Sea coast. Back here at home in Lethbridge and across Alberta, civic election results have become official as of today. To recap, here in our city, Blaine Higgin has become re-elected as mayor for his second term in office. 5 incumbents have also been re-elected to city council. 17,152 voters cast a ballot, which is 19.35% of the 88,647 eligible voters. This is significantly lower than past municipal elections, including 2021, which saw over 27,000 cast their ballots. A swearing-in ceremony is now scheduled at City Hall for next Monday at 1:30 p.m. for the mayor and council-elects. In surrounding communities near Lethbridge, Coaldale has re-elected incumbent Mayor Jack Van Ryn. Cole Hurst has voted in Deb Florence as mayor. Andrew Prokop is re-elected as mayor of Tabor, and Brent Fader went unopposed in Fort Macleod and will return as mayor there. 3 of the 8 elected to Lethbridge City Council will be newcomers and will aim to bring fresh new perspectives to the council room over the next term. After finding out about their victories, Ryan Wolf and Rufadoria each expressed their excitement while emphasizing the real work begins after Monday's swearing-in ceremony.
We're super, super happy. We are super grateful, humbled, honored. I mean, I guess all of those words, but you do feel all of that all at the same time. And then when you get over that, you do feel the weight of the responsibility of what is ahead. And I take that very seriously. And so we have work to do, and there'll be a little bit of time here to kind of feel great about all the results that we got and the hard work. But at the end of the day, there's much work to be done, and we're excited to get rolling. I have spoken to most of the now presumed elected candidates, and we even started a group chat today. So this is exciting. So yeah, we've been in contact, and I think everybody's ready to get to work.
It has been a whirlwind of emotions. I think anticipating the result, it's very, very emotional. I'm very proud. I'm very proud to the very first Filipina to be in the council. And I think it's a historic part of Lethbridge that there is a woman of color, there is a Filipina be a representative. The people of Lethbridge want to have a continuity of what the council have done before, and of course with the new council, with a new fresh inputs there, with new fresh perspective, we can work all together. Like we have to work together for the better future of Lethbridge.
The other remaining newcomer to council is longtime Lethbridge Herald publisher Elle Bieber, and congratulations to all of them. Lethbridge Police Service will be out in the public brewing up some Halloween fun next Friday. LPS will host their 3rd annual Trunk or Treat event on Halloween night, where children and their families can visit police vehicles at various sites in the city in a safe and fun manner. Uniformed officers and civilian staff will decorate police vehicles and hand out tasty treats in 3 locations in the city. During Halloween, LPS are also reminding residents to ensure safe measures are taken when going out to trick or treat or or other events that night.
Over the last 2 years, we've had quite a turnout from families and children coming out to the trunk or treat areas, and we've handed out around 8,000 candies over the last few years. So I think it just gives people that comfortability when dealing with their kids and treats from different people, especially nowadays. With all the kids in traffic, we want to just make sure that kids are using the crosswalks and crossing safely, and that cars are slowing down and paying attention to the children that are out and about trick-or-treating from house to house.
Police will be out from 5 till 7 p.m. near the Nicholas Sharon Park boat launch parking lot, behind also the Logan Boulay Arena and Henderson Lake Nika Yuko parking lot. The Orionid meteor shower caused by debris from Halley's Comet has been underway since the arrival of the new moon and will continue until November 7th. It offers stargazers an exciting and excellent opportunity to see up to 20 shooting stars per hour without interference from moonlight. Halley's Comet passes near Earth only once every 75 years, but the debris it leaves behind creates 2 major meteor showers each year. James Polson, astronomer and secretary-treasurer for the Sunridge Observatory Medicine Hat Astronomy Club, tells us what we can expect during this year's display.
What it is, it's the Earth is passing through a debris field left over from a comet in its orbit on going around the sun. So the comet's debris field is actually generated by Halley's Comet, which is probably the most famous comet visible. You need to be able to identify where the constellation of Orion is located at in the sky. Probably best to view them early in the morning. So anytime after 1 a.m., anytime between 1 and about 5 a.m. Halley's Comet passes through the area about once every 75, 76 years. It was last in the area in the late fall of 1985 and the early winter of 1986. It's due back in 2061. So I actually got to see it in 1985. I had the opportunity to share it with about 10,000 other people. So it was a really exciting time.
According to Meteor Shower Calendar 2025-26 of American Meteor Society, the Meteor Data Center of the International Astronomical Union lists over 900 suspected meteor showers, of which about 100 are well established. Well, tonight in Toronto, the Blue Jays and Los Angeles Dodgers square off in Game 1 of the World Series. It's the Jays' first time in the World Series in 32 years. The 416 is a buzz with Jays fandom, and you won't be surprised to learn that all this Jays love and camaraderie is good for everyone's mental health.
One thing we think about when we think of sports fans is the group identity, the adoption of a group identity, and how that can fulfill our innate need for belongingness and social connection. And I think in like our modern contemporary world, everyone is very isolated, and there's a lot of structures in society that kind of keep us that way, right? And I think what's cool about sports fandom is that it is often intergenerational, right? So like there's a family history of being a Jays fan, likely, or other teams like Canucks locally and so on. But it's also enduring. It's an enduring identity that people often hold. Like they're brought into it in childhood, and no matter what happens in the world, they're still a Jays fan at the end of the day, right? And I think that constancy can be really, really protective for people in just like coping with life in some ways.
While it's good for our mental health, it might not be quite so good for the pocketbook. Resale seats for Game 1 have ranged from $3,000 to $9,000. Air Canada says it's reducing its total workforce by about 1% by cutting roughly 400 management jobs. The move comes after a 3-day strike by over 10,000 flight attendants back in August shut down operations and caused more than 3,000 flight cancellations. The country's largest airline says the job action cost it $375 million. It says customer refunds and compensation, as well as lower bookings in August and September, made up the bulk of the financial hit. Business is booming for retailers selling merchandise related to the Toronto Blue Jays. Canadian e-commerce company Shopify Inc. says companies using its software have been seeing sales of jerseys linked to the World Series bound team increase by more than 283% between the first 3 weeks of September and the first 3 of October. It says its merchants have also experienced a 235% rise in purchases of Jays baseball caps. The Jays begin the World Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight in Toronto. It's the first appearance in the championship for the Blue Jays since 1993. The size of your Halloween candy may be smaller this year as manufacturers deal with the rising costs of cocoa. Cocoa prices have more than doubled in 2 years due to poor weather and crop disease in West Africa, which supplies most of the world's cocoa. Marketing expert Joanne MacArthur says producers are turning to substitutes like chocolate powder or shea butter blends to offset the costs. KPMG's Tim Webb warns the prices may stay high amid climate pressures, urging companies to diversify sourcing and support farmers long term. Now here is a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 166 to 30,353. The Dow was up 472 to 47,207. The S&P 500 was up 53 to 6,791. And the Nasdaq was up 263 to 23,204. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 33 cents to 61.46 US per barrel. Natural gas was down a cent to 3.33 US. Gold was down 13.60 to 41.1251 US an ounce, and silver was down 33 cents to 48.59 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.16 per bushel. Barley is at $5.70. Canola is at $14.06, and corn is at $7.29 per bushel. Live cattle were down $5.97 to $233.75. Feeder cattle were down $9.05 to $354.30, and lean hogs December contract was up 12 cents to $81.90. And the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours and currently sits at $71.50 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Ontario Premier Doug Ford says Ontario will pause its U.S. ad campaign on tariffs in an effort to restart trade talks. U.S. President Donald Trump terminated trade discussions with Canada after the ad aired on some U.S. television stations on Thursday. The ad features recordings of former President Ronald Reagan warning about tariffs and the devastating economic effects they can have. As the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas seems to be holding by a thread, here in Canada, the Jewish community also feels the sting of discrimination. What is causing the rise in anti-Semitism? Rabbi Jared Grover of Beth Tikva Synagogue in Toronto gives us his thoughts on this important issue. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews.